and welcome to Sonic Bytes, the freewheeling conversation and interview series for the eclectic music lover. This week we have a very good friend, Bethany Graves, on the podcast to discuss her new short film, The Book of Laws. She composed the music for the film, which Leo and I were ecstatic to be asked to play on the soundtrack for, and she also helped to co-write and co-produce the film along with her mum, Tisha Graves, and a very talented group of creatives. We had a chance to view the film early as part of creating the film, and were blown away by the concept, storyline, and performances, as well as the production quality, and it's awesome to have a chance to discuss the making of the film in depth with her. We also chat about the creative process and how to approach composing music on a more general level as well. If you'd like to keep up with the film release and behind the scenes footage, make sure to follow The Book of Laws on Facebook and Instagram, and we'll link these in the episode description. We're really enjoying creating these podcasts for you every week, and hope they're adding interesting perspectives to approaching the world of music in these crazy times. Do follow us on Spotify, Apple, or Stitcher, and leave a review wherever you can, or like and subscribe to the channel on YouTube, as it really helps support the show. We hope you enjoyed the episode.
Alright, should we clap?
Sure, you go for it, Leo. Oh.
I'm going with determination now, you know.
No, I like it.
That's what you got to do. Confidence. This is the 19th episode. We gotta know what we're doing by now, you know. That's what they say about number 19, you know.
Yeah.
Jonathan Chung, the usurper.
Every time
That's
I think,
you know.
19, I think that's a very determined number.
I felt determined. I was calling it. I was calling it in a determined. I was like, "Go for it, Leo." And then Johnny's just like, "Yes."
Yeah. You just like, yeah.
That's my next Dungeons and Dragons character name. The usurper.
The usurper.
Yeah. I'm happy you went there, Johnny.
I love it.
Yeah. I've been trying to get into my fantasy recently. I don't know.
Really?
I have nowhere to go. Like
talking to the right person, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, Leo Kelly G. He really loves dressing up as a medieval bard on the weekends.
Mm-hmm.
Weekends, all the time. My pajamas
I
have bard pajamas.
Yeah.
You know what? Your business is your own, Leo. Your business is your own. So anyway,
stuff. This is a magic ring. It's not a wedding ring. This is my magical signet ring. Sorry.
I think the less said about that, the better. But I am. If you want to get into fantasy, I'll give you recommendations. You know, I could just send you my own music. To be honest, I'm making fantasy music now, just as a hobby.
Have we heard some of it already?
Both of you have played on.
Yeah, I was making sure we were talking about the same way. Yeah. It's amazing, that music. I love it so much.
Would you call the Book of Laws like it is? I guess it is fantastical, but it's not fantastical in a way like that.
Yeah, it's not. There is elements of, prophecy in it, but it's very clear.
Sure. That
it's all fake. And that there's no actual mysticism. It's just basically a cult. And they're just being sort of deceived and being sold on a lie. And that's just the whole premise of the film. And it's just, and the film is basically just is just trying to get underneath that and get underneath all of the psychology of all levels of that kind of community and even outsiders of it. So...
Yeah,
I'm happy to be here.
Thanks so much for coming on the podcast. It's been a long time coming, and I've been really excited to finally get you onto the podcast.
Yeah,
in official capacity.
Yes, of course, because I've been in the shadows. I've been watching from the shadow. I'm a big fan of the podcast. I've watched every episode with my eyes. I could have just listened to it, but I went one better. I watched them on the YouTube, and I like the videos with all 5 of my alt accounts. I'm just kidding. Am I? You'll never know. And I try my best to, actually engage with it, to, leave a comment when I can and stuff like that. But I don't want to do that too much, because then you're just that guy who's always there in every comment section of these videos, and that can backfire on you because... Well, I remember we did a radio show. We've been guests on a radio show called The Unsigned Showcase, I think it was called.
Yes, it was, with Abdul.
Sure.
Abdul and Jason, and I love those people. But I remember I set them up with some new guests, and they were like, Yeah, and also feel free to leave comments in the live chat of the episode. Look engaged, and make sure that there's traffic, and and I was doing that, and I was just chatting all sorts of nonsense, just trying to engage with what they were saying or make little remarks, just trying to look like there was a sizable audience who were interested in what these people have to say, and that it was true anyway. But I wanted to contribute to that as much as I could, being a supportive friend. And then we do our joint episode where we were guesting on the show at the same time.
Yes.
And then Jason makes this remark like, "Oh yeah, Bethany sure thought she owned the chat last week."
Yeah.
Can you believe the audacity of that?
You asked me to get involved, and now you're ribbing me on air about getting involved.
I know, I was there just like, I did this for you.
Yes, this is all for you. And they still...
No, I jokes aside though, I love them. I think they're still going on Instagram. I think they do Instagram live shows.
I know that Abdul, he started a new podcast now, which is Becoming the Artist, I think.
Becoming the Artist.
Yes,
wow.
The first episode was with Yigsy, and he's getting a few other people on there as well.
Yeah, I think he's getting Ugly Yeti on, I think, at some point as well. So
he's coming for all of all the people that we're going to be interviewing. We've got competition, Johnny.
There's a bit of
he's coming for our fan base.
Yeah. But yeah, we should, or if you want, I'll find them, and maybe if you could link them in the description of the video, that would be nice.
Yeah. Yes.
Hey man,
I love them. I'm a big fan of Abdul and Jason.
Yeah. We're all just local businesses recommending people to each other, It's
exactly.
There's no competition between at all. I'm really in, I asked to go on Apple's podcast because it looks really cool, and I'd really like to get involved. And also, we thought it'd be really cool to get him on this podcast, like as a podcaster, and have a podcast about podcasting.
Ooh, I love
that.
Have
a really meta episode, because that'd be quite cool too.
Yeah, because you can just talk about talking to musicians. You can both post it. I don't know. People do collabs where there's a section of it that they sort of divide the content up, and then they put little bits on their respective channels. And so Abdul can go, and if you want to hear more about this, go to Sonic Bytes podcast and check out part 2. And then you can be like, and if you want to find out more of this, go to Becoming the Artist over on Instagram and check them out,
Yeah. Well, if you're an avid listener, you have to see if that actually plays out as we have forked.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I will, because I'm there. I'm inside you. In a metaphorical, loving and completely healthy way.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like you do live sort of rent free in both Leo and my head, in terms of influence.
That's very true, actually. Yeah.
Sorry, not in a really weird way, but just
I'm a squatter. I'm squatting in your head.
Yeah.
You're like a plug-in to my self-editing mechanism.
Really? As in you're about to say something, and then you're thinking, what would Bethany make of this? Maybe not. Maybe I won't say it.
More when I write stuff, but you're one of the people that when I write something, what part of me goes, but would Bethany like that? And it doesn't get through my head if I don't think that you'll sort of at least give it the time of day, if that makes sense.
Right. Okay, that's very interesting.
An extra level of in a really good way. It makes me if I come up with an idea and it's kind of Bethany wouldn't like it, it's probably not worth doing kind of thing. And it's
that kind of makes me feel bad though.
No.
You can't let my tastes get in the way of, because I don't dislike everything. That's just because I dislike it doesn't mean it's bad a lot of the time.
No, of course, but it just means in a good way it makes me write better music. I think, at least, because it just makes me a bit more analytical and a bit more kind of. Okay. It makes me try a bit harder with things, as opposed to just going, that'll do. It's just kind of no way. It's got to at least meet my mental idea of what the Bethany Graves seal of approval is.
Oh my goodness!
It's it's not even to do with actual Bethany Graves. It's completely a new manifestation, fantasy, right?
Yeah.
It's fantasy Graves.
It's fantasy Bethany Graves. Yeah. That's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
Fantany. Why is that so funny? It's not. Goodness. I definitely. Well, I feel that both of you live rent free in my head as well.
I mean,
I think of you two every second of every day. I think every second, about about at least 7 microseconds of that second, I'm thinking, wonder what Johnny and Leo are doing right now. You're just bubbling.
I mean, that might be a segue into talking about, because I guess the whole point of this is to really dive into the creative process behind the Book of Laws and everything to do with, that short film.
Yeah. But hold on a second, no. Let me talk about how much I'm a fan of the podcast a bit first.
There's more. Okay. We'll just drag back that.
We'll get there. Honestly, okay. I promise you we'll get there.
There's no rush. It's all good.
But I just wanted to say, I am loving just learning about all of these new people that you know. All the new guests. Like, I'm a legitimate fan of Hannah Elkins and Ned Stranger now. And especially because it's really weird how much you can, as a musician at least, I don't know in what capacity everyone's listening to the podcast, but as a musician, it's really interesting seeing someone that you don't know who they are, and yet they're describing a musical background or something about their musical process or something that's meaningful to them. That's really resonating with you, that really resonates with you. So especially, I can pick out a few. So Hannah Elkins, she and her mom just made a family record label. First of all, that's dope.
Amazing, right?
I mean, that's similar to you. I guess you had to also set up TBZ Productions in order to
exactly. And film. 2 of those 3 letters are just me and my mum. So
oh yeah.
So Tisha and Bethany and Zarina, who's our other producer.
I thought it was just Zed for the hell of it, just because it was him.
Yeah.
TVs.
We need something cool on the end. Zed, let's do it. It's perfect.
I mean, there is an actual cantopop group in Hong Kong called the Bees or something like that.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. What kind of music do they do?
It's just straight up cantopop, I think.
Counterpop.
It's canto, like Cantonese pop.
Oh, cantopop.
Did you think he was saying counterpop as well?
Yeah. I was just is that some sort of rebellious?
Yeah. Wait, no. What's counterpop? Oh my god.
Down with the system. Down with functional harmonies.
Yeah.
I mean, I might be thinking
chords
of
1
and
5.
I might be thinking
negative
of the
views
wrong
on
group.
Spotify and
Anyway.
YouTube.
Sleepify, more like Wakeify.
No, I've got it completely wrong. They are not a cantopop group. They're actually a Japanese rock duo.
Really?
I thought, I just knew there was a band from East Asia that was called Bees,
okay.
but I thought they were Cantonese.
That's cantopop, basically.
Yeah.
A Japanese rock duo.
If you believe that Japan is the antithesis of China.
Yeah.
Yes, Japan.
But no,
they're
generally called the Bees. Anyway, you can't see it.
I'm into that. I like that. But no, it's actually just our names. So we have done that. We've made a film production company. Me and the Ma. I've never called her that before. But yeah. And also we do our family in general does do a lot of projects together. My brother, even he's also involved. He's an excellent musician, first of all, but also an excellent coder and engineer and stuff like that. So he's very useful, and he's always helping us out. And he's also part of the business as well, part of our our other family business. So
I've always been curious, actually. What was it? I'm not sure if this is a divergence or not, but in terms of growing up with that sort of family, what was it like having a mum who's really musical and a brother who's really musical, and just sort of being in that sort of environment?
Well, got nothing to compare it to, really, so but I think it's really good. It's just great, to be honest. I love my brother. I love my mum. I wouldn't have them any other way. I think they're great. And also my brother is a huge influence. Anything, even from Hiromi or Joe Pass and Brad Meldau and Pat Metheny and any of those. Pretty much, there's just so many artists who, even Yoko Kanno. I would not have heard of Yoko Kanno if not for my brother.
Oh, wow.
And she's a Japanese composer. She does a lot of anime, and she did a Ghost in the Shell series, and she's very prolific and very amazing, and I kind of just want to be her. If I had to choose a business model for my entire life, I would just be Yoko Kanno, because she's amazing. And my brother is the one who got me into that, because he's 7 years older than me, so I think that's cool. I mean, having an older brother is just cool in general, especially if your older brother is just cool in and of himself. You just want to be around him all the time. And so anything that he likes, so, he'll be watching some anime and all of a sudden I'm a weeaboo. And then I shouldn't have said that. Edit that out, yeah? And then, or he'll be like, he applied for computer science at UCL, and so I had to apply for computer science at UCL, and now I've got a computer science degree. So he is a really big influence on my life. And my mum as well. Like, we're just really tight. We're kind of the same person. We've got the same parameters, just in slightly different amounts. And so it's just nice. It's also, it's nice. It's easy to spend a lot of time with them as well, because the more like you they are, the less you have to clash against, I guess. It's really chill. And in terms of just being, I love it, because they're just educating me all the time, because they're both older than me. You'd hope.
At least with your mum.
Yeah, exactly. And so they just, whatever they're doing is rubbing off on you. So at a young age, you're getting accustomed to a whole load of music and a whole load of even, Beethoven. Like my mum, I think Moonlight Sonata is the only piano piece that she knows off by heart, because she's a better sight reader than me.
Sure.
And so I've always known her to sight read, but I always remember her playing Moonlight Sonata. I always remember my brother listening to so many different styles and types of music. He just likes music, I think, and which is a good thing.
Yeah, you don't say.
I think my point is getting drawn out and thinned out a little bit, so I think I'll stop it there. But it's great. I love it. It's just a massive education.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's, I mean, like growing up kind of without that and not having people to bounce ideas off of until I was almost 20, really, until I came to university. Like, I always find it really cool hearing people talk about that kind of like, having music, not just having music on all the time, but being exposed to a lot of different music. Because I was exposed to a fair amount, but like my parents were never into classical music, and they never sort of touched on the fringes of anything really. So I was exposed to a lot of pop music, but the pop music of their generation, so like the 60s, the 70s, and the 80s of sort of like chart music, and that's kind of what I grew up with. And so, like even when I met you guys, it was kind of it was just like a massive kind of like broadening of everything, sort of finding out about all this other music. Like you showed me Yoko Kanno, Johnny, you introduced me to people like D'Angelo, Mama's Gun. And it's just like all of it just, sort of flooded in, and I've never heard of any of it before. And obviously, so it's really cool that you guys had that from such a young age,
But that does tend to happen when you meet Jonathan Chung.
Yes, that's very true.
I recently, because I've now understand that being in live music society, which we've all been in, is basically just opening the door to loads of people with really, really cool music tastes who have really cool songs to share that they listen to. I now just, whenever I want to find out new music, I just try and outsource that as much as possible. Like we have a little group chat, I think, for songwriters. And I've been there being like, and if anyone just has any references or recommendations of songs, feel free to contribute. It's all valid discussion. And really, I just want to just consume some new music, because I know that they have it within them, but I want definitely. It. But like Jonathan Chung is that times 1,000. I feel like, just because he just loves music in general so much, and there's a lot of Jonathan Chung has a lot of scope for variety. So he'll introduce you to Wolfpack and Snarky Puppy, but then he'll also introduce you to this really weird, like, oh, what's the name? Was it the Punch Brothers or Anna Meredith? And I love Anna Meredith. I went on a massive Anna Meredith binge after. I think you just messaged me being like, oh, this is really cool music. And yeah, and even everything, they're very different. And Hiromi, they're very different styles. But Jonathan Chung, he embraces every style and he finds something good in everything, as opposed to I like this, I don't like this. He always looks for what he does like, which is really interesting. And it's kind of being around someone like that is very musically enriching, I would say. And then there's the Mahler, you know?
Oh yeah, we can. I mean, I would call myself a Mahler novice, to be fair. Like, I wouldn't be able to.
That's true, but I mean, bonding with you has actually made me want to acquaint myself with Mahler now, because it's like, I think it's just something that we both want to do. And we have done so. We've taken those first steps together as well, because we both went, we've both gone to those concerts. Yeah. So I really like. Oh, that's actually really lovely as well. Discovering an artist or a composer at the same time as someone else.
Sure.
Like I really love that. Like just making the decision with you, Johnny, being like, we're gonna get more acquainted with Mahler, and then being like, yeah, let's go to a bunch of Mahler concerts, and then. Just sort of like bopping and just having that concert buddy where you can just wordlessly vibe, or the conductor can do something and you can both be like, hey. It's really nice.
Yeah, it's almost like people say confirmation bias is a bad thing, but you almost have like having that confirmation with
it's more like exactly. It's more like validation that you really did just see that, or that you did just hear that, you know. That this is really happening. Yeah. I love when someone does something sick on the bass guitar and you just want to look at someone to be like, did everyone else see that? And then you catch eyes with someone and they're like, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I guess it is an affinity with sort of just like rich music, right? Like that's music that just has a lot there. Or even if it doesn't have a lot there, there's like, it gives you like a bigger feeling, you know, and it's not necessarily, it's both tangible feelings and not tangible at the same time. You know, it's like when you might go into writing something, but you don't necessarily like, you'll be thinking, okay, I want it to sound this way. I want it to make it sort of big in that way.
Yeah.
But you can't ever like. Composers never write for us to have that reaction to the music, you know.
Do you think
that's? I mean, like they might have a certain intention, but some people do. But yeah,
composers are like they have something that they want to express, and they come at it from I want to convey this message or this story. But you think they don't necessarily go, I want the audience to feel this way at this time. Do you not think that they...
Well, because you can't really control like what the audience feels, right? Like,
that's really interesting.
That's true.
I mean, that's my philosophy. Like you create a piece of art, whatever form, and you might have it's like the whole... I mean, that's a massive philosophical debate, but...
Yeah, no, but that's very interesting because I've started, now that I'm doing filmmaking... that a lot of writing a script or editing a sequence together, you are like, there is that essence of what do I want the audience to feel at this particular moment in time, not just what's happening in the story, but you're thinking, I need to put myself in somehow in the audience's shoes.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And I need to find a moment. Sometimes, and I've read this, and other people do this too, but at the same time, this is my first film project, so sure. I don't want to talk as if, you know, I'm Quentin Tarantino over here, but that sometimes when you want the audience to have a particular reaction, sometimes that's ended up guiding what actually happens in the story, as opposed to the other way around.
That's really interesting.
we had, even within the script, I think we wanted to sow some. Well, I think we were thinking. I think it's got something to do with drama, or just creating drama is doing the opposite of what you kind of would expect, or something like that.
That's subverting expectations.
Subverting expectations. So I remember having a bit of a debate with my mother when we were having script meetings, where one of the actresses or the actors, who was it? Yeah, so someone in the film does something that I kind of was thinking, but I don't understand, because like if I were in that situation, I would just not do that. So why does this person do that? And she was saying, oh, well, because we want people to be intrigued and we want people to ask, why is she doing that? And we kind of want people to be confused and want to know more. And then and then I said, well, okay, if you want the surprise of, oh, whoa, she did that, instead of doing what I would have done, or what, you know, what I feel a normal person would do in that situation, if you're going to have that moment of surprise, or, you know, subverting the audience's expectations in that way, then you can't just have it come out of nowhere. It has to be somewhere ingrained within her character so that it makes sense. So then I found myself going back to previous scenes and trying to sow all of the insecurities of this character, and I was trying to portray the character as insecure in X, Y, and Z way, so that when it came to that moment, even though it wasn't the rational decision, you can understand why she specifically would make that decision, because of all of the things that is important to her and what she's worried about and what she's been insecure about up until that moment, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Sure. And was that like, was that creative decision made, so that was in the writing process, or was that was made like
during the script? It was, yeah, so it was while we were finishing the script, yeah.
Sure. Okay.
So we ended up having a dialogue scene between two characters where it was a slightly antagonistic conversation. It wasn't really a conversation, it was more of an argument. And so one character says to the other character, you know, a bunch of things that makes her feel really insecure about herself and makes her think that her life decisions might be wrong. Mm-hmm. And that sort of contributed to her sort of, you know, making the decision that maybe if they hadn't had that conversation, she would have been a bit more firm and she wouldn't have allowed herself to, you know, do whatever.
Mm. Cool.
Is it okay to talk like this? I feel like I'm censoring the spoilers
absolutely.
So much.
No, it's like no.
I hope it's interesting.
No, it is, and it's also
despite the fact that there's so much I don't really want to talk about with the specific things.
It's interesting for us, because like obviously you very kindly showed us to a private screening of the film already, so I'm sort of like in my head going like,
we did a bit of like a test.
I know she's talking about.
Yeah, we did a bit of a test. Because you guys are actually, it wasn't a random test screening, because you guys are actually in the film in some capacity, because Leo, you were in the soundtrack, you played the guitar, and Johnny, you also played the violin. So, and actually sometimes as well, I can hear you very, very clearly, both of you. And so I really like the whole process of, I love watching the film and then hearing something be like, that's Johnny's violin. And then sometimes I can be like, that's Min's viola. Because, Min was also playing viola. We basically just got a bunch of our old friends together and sort of created what amounted to a little, little orchestra type situation. And then we just recorded in whatever way we could. We did have like a big recording space, rented out, hired out. But then we also when I needed more specific bits, I did get you round to get in my shed and record.
I mean, one of my questions about that was how much of that sort of went to plan in terms of like from when you obviously you wrote out the whole score and you had to put it together. Did that change at all in terms of the final product, and especially with film scoring where things have to happen at a certain time, you're writing to the music, you have recorded these things that are this length, you know. Obviously you might edit it, you might speed things up or whatever. But how did that change overall from your original vision? Or was it like, or did you get there?
So there are a couple of ways I can interpret your question, and I'll just answer both of a couple of ways. I'll answer them a couple of times. So in many ways, nothing really went to plan. Everything went wrong. You know, I had, lockdown happened, so that messed up a lot of my plans as well. So a lot of it was mending and making do, and just improvising and just sort of doing what we can and just making do with what we've got. And which was, it sucks at the time because it just adds to your many stresses. But at the same time, it is a good lesson in innovation, I suppose, and necessity breeding invention. In terms of specific composition, I think it was all. I don't think I had to change the bulk of anything.
Sure.
Because I had, by the time it came down to finalizing everything on the paper, I'd already received what was pretty much going to be the final cut, not the picture log. So it's everything edited exactly as it would be before it gets color graded. And so for that reason, there wasn't actually much I had to change. There were a couple of perhaps happy accidents when I was mixing that I thought, ooh, I'll just leave you in there because you sound quite nice.
But not stuff that affects the overall vision or anything.
Yeah, nothing that affected the overall vision too much. Yeah. Actually, I will say one thing, which was Wild Eyes, which is the song that plays during the credit scene.
Yeah.
I remember we modified the credits, and so the credits ended up being a lot longer than the song. And so then I was like, so now I just have to compose some music all of a sudden out of nowhere. That's fine. And then but that was fine. I just chucked that on the end of it. But that's the only thing I think where anything was substantially changed. But yeah, I loved Min's episode too, by the way. That was super refreshing. I've never really... Well, it is nice hearing about classical music, but I've never really listened to a podcast where classical music was discussed in like such a nice freewheeling way, because it's often structured in I listen to the radio and sometimes there are those kinds of interviews, but it's so nice having it in a very chill setting. And especially with Min talking to Leo, and like, I felt like, it was very nice. It was very nice. It was nice watching your sort of discovery of classical music, or sort of deepening your journey.
Yeah, I think through
Min's conversation.
It's almost as if internet culture and like classical music are sort of matching up now. They're joining up, and people are starting to explore
exactly.
that
Just
arena.
like Also, thank you, Johnny, for getting me into that Bach podcast.
Oh yeah, WTF Bach. Go listen to it. This is this guy talking about Bach.
He has the most peculiar character to his voice. And I really enjoy it. I enjoy listening to him, but I also enjoy, because I watched the episode, the Jack Stratton episode. Jack Stratton went on from Wolfpack, went on and talked to this dude about why he likes Bach. But it was also much the same way that like Leo was talking to Min on his episode.
Yeah,
it was actually quite funny.
I see what you mean. Yeah, that's the parallel though, because it's someone who has dipped their toes in and is interested in finding out more. Like there's the curiosity element, but he's also like having his mind like blown on the spot
at the same time.
Because Min and I are like waxing lyrical, like we're like amazing at talking
but it's
about
just nice
music,
seeing
but just
someone
concepts,
being interested.
Yeah.
Ask questions and have them fulfilled, and being like, oh, cool,
Yeah. I think it's nice because, like, I think a lot of classical music, like at least the stuff that I've come into contact on the radio, it presupposes that you know a lot already. in some way or another, you know. And so like getting into it was really nice to have him in there, because he opened my eyes to sort of just being brought up in a classical way, which I'd never met anyone who was like that. And so it was just everything he said was just like pure, like childish wonder coming onto me. Oh my god, like how have I not heard of any of this before? It was amazing.
But I like that. Yeah, it does take he took the sort of esoteric nature out of it a little bit. I also what was quite funny. I was Min did mention, you did talk about, he said, I've never known anyone to, you know, go to school and then go to like Saturday music school just to study composition specifically. And I wanted to be like, no, Min, that's me.
Yeah.
I studied composition at Saturday school. But yeah, I just love the show, man. And I love Pearl Solves as well. I'm sorry, I keep bringing it back to, I'm just a genuine fan of the show. I'm just a genuine Sonic's. I'm not that big a fan of it. I can't remember the name. What is it? Sonic's.
Sonic Bytes.
Sure.
Sonic Tights.
Oh,
anyway,
right.
Stalactites. Anyway.
Teutonic Knights. Or it's a whole nother. The composition thing leads on
Bubonic
really nicely. Because obviously, yeah, like in terms of studying composition, it's never something that I've studied. But like in terms of actually studying composition, like what is it that is there anything you learned in that you sort of applied to the film? Kind of like how did to me, the fact that you are able to even score a film just completely blows my mind. Like I'm just about capable of writing a 4.5 minute song, and you've got enough for like, you know, almost an hour's worth of music just specifically for a film. Like it's just it's mind blowing. Like how do you even begin?
Yeah. I will tell you a story.
I'm also curious of like what, like, did you find out anything new about scoring for a film? Like, because I guess you haven't properly scored for like 60 minutes of film in the past.
No, I've never done that before. No.
Yeah. So was there anything you learned on the way as well? You know.
Yes, there was. Okay. But mostly through.
Sorry.
Oh, you just wait, mister. So, okay, I'll go to Leo's question. You know, first come, first serve. You know, the world doesn't revolve around you, Johnny. So, sorry, I'm just kidding. It clearly does. Anyway.
The Chum World amusement park is opening soon.
So we did have, I was very, very, very directly influenced by my time at Guildhall. Specifically in, I think, the first like proper orchestral notes of the entire soundtrack, because it starts with some vocal stuff, and then the strings come in, and it's a cold open. It's very creepy. It's very mysterious. It's very disorientating as well, because no one really knows what's going on, because we haven't told anyone, quite frankly. But that I was thinking about what I could do for that, and I was very directly inspired by my music awareness class, because we all, again, everyone at Guildhall, they do their first study, second study, whatever, and then they also do everyone does a music awareness class every week as well. And we were studying an opera by Bela Bartok called Bluebeard's Castle. I think it was called Bluebeard's Castle. And
Sure.
it opens the entire opera with 4 phrases of 4 notes each. So it kind of just goes ba-da-da-da, da-da-da-da, ba-da-da-da, da-da-da-da. And I didn't do that. I did something a little bit like it. So it was just the idea of very, very low grumbling strings moving in unison, which kind of really added a very mysterious and kind of a little bit menacing vibe. And that's something that I wanted to tap into. And so that's a story of a very, very direct reference to an application of a lesson that I had learned. I think
it's, I was going to just like to comment on that. I think it's really cool when you're able to like take the idea of something kind of like as you said, sort of like groupings of 4 notes like that, but then kind of like break it down to its like basic kind of like concept, and then sort of like rework it again. So it's kind of like, it's not like a literal kind of like 1-for-1, like, oh, they did that and I'll take that, but it's kind of like taking the concept of it and then moving it. Like it just gives, it's really, really cool.
Well, let's talk about that. Okay, so I really like the idea. I've been thinking about I think about music sometimes. I just think about thinking about music sometimes. Just you know, I'm just kind of deep like that, kind of deep. And I like the idea of, I have a school of thought where you are on a sliding scale with being composing in a procedural way on one hand, and then composing in a very intuitive way on the other hand. And when I say procedural, I mean, if you've ever listened to Jacob Collier describe anything about why he composed something the way he did ever, if you ever listen to him just talk about his decision process behind a composition, I would describe the way he explains it as a way a procedural composer might think before before they compose something.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure if you've ever, I love Jacob Collier's In the Bleak Midwinter arrangement. I love it. I think it's the most beautiful thing. And he does this modulation to, I think, G.5 sharp major. And I was watching him describe how he arrived at the conclusion of that G.5 sharp major was the thing that needed to happen. And it's very much, I want to achieve this effect. I think about how I can possibly achieve this effect, and then I realize how I can do that, and then I do it. And I'm not saying that Jacob Collier is a procedural composer, but that sort of, the way he explains it
sounds very procedural.
It sounds like the way that someone might, because he's explaining it to you after he's done it. But that taking that and putting it at the forefront, that could be how like a procedural composer would start the process.
It's very premeditated, isn't it? It's like you know what you're going for before you arrive at it, and then you set out to do it, and then you do it.
Exactly. And then I have which one was the procedural?
The other one.
Your right was the
procedural,
and then the intuitive was the other hand.
Yeah, left.
This guy.
Yeah.
No, that was procedural.
This was procedural. So this is intuitive.
Yeah. I wonder if that's got anything to do with like the left and right brain, like subconsciously, one being the creative side and one being the listener. Maybe not. I'm not sure.
I have no idea, but that's not really within my purview. I don't know what purview means.
If anyone's fact checking
that phrase,
if this is like the procedural side of the brain and this is the intuitive, like please let us know, because that would be so cool if that just happened.
Well, this is well, in terms of left brain, right brain, this is your logical left brain, and this is your sort of, what is it, supposedly creative woo-woo right brain, right?
But doesn't like the left like control the other side or something?
Does it? So is it just all imposed? Is it?
So it could
opposing?
Be that could literally have been procedural, like. Sorry, just the complete.
Maybe I was intuitively tapping into the structure of the brain biologically without realizing it.
That's what.
Then also talking about it, so it gets all meta.
That's what I was going.
I mean, we can talk about this till the cows come home.
Exactly. But sorry,
let's talk about intuitive
side,
yes. Yeah. So then you'd have the intuitive composer who just feels stuff, So they might even, I like to believe that you can come to exactly the same conclusion as a procedural composer might come to. Like you could perhaps, but you just wouldn't know why you've done it until you've gone back and analyzed it. And so one person knows why he does what he does when he does it, and the other person doesn't know why he does what he does when he does it. And I like the idea that there might just be like a bit of a sliding scale, or people might just use different measures of both, types of composing as and when it suits them or whatever. I just like the idea of, I just like the terms intuitive and procedural, and I've just made some labels up for no reason essentially. But But it does help me describe my creative process a little bit better, because I would say, especially when it comes to writing the soundtrack, well, in general, I like to do both, but I specifically like to, when I'm doing like a first draft kind of thing, I like to compose as, what do you think? What do you think? Do I, intuitive or procedural? What do you think I'm going to say?
I want to say, I don't know, because I've heard you talk about stuff before, and you've always been quite, like, just in terms of the way you think about melodies and stuff, like, you definitely talk very procedurally. But then again, I know that the way you look at music and harmony and just everything is very intuitive at the same time. So I'm going to, I reckon procedural.
Johnny, what are you going to go for?
I don't know. I'm
so not invested. We're playing a game. We're playing a game. But what do you think I was going to say?
I would say intuitive at first.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go with Johnny's answer, because I did meant when I was gesturing, I was doing it with the intuitive hand. So you should have really picked up on that. Yeah. But also, also specific, I really do like, I love an analysis, I guess, as a thing that you can do. But when I'm first starting out, I really like to do everything as intuitive as possible, just because I don't believe that intuition is some woo-woo stuff. I believe that intuition is something, you processing some information through your ears or your eyes or something, and that sort of gets processed by your subconscious, and you just don't necessarily communicate that well enough to your conscious brain.
Yeah.
For you to know why you feel a certain way about something. But if you really thought about it, and if you just, I think it's also a neural pathway that you can reinforce in a way. So you can train having like a very strong connection between your conscious brain and your subconscious brain. And I think that's what wise people possibly are. These are all theories. Wise people are, or emotionally intelligent people are, because they'll have a bad feeling about someone, and instead of being like, I have a bad feeling about that person, they'll go, oh, well, when he said this, he made me feel this way. And that's why I have a bad feeling about someone. So I think we should pay a lot more attention to our subconscious in general, because I also think that the subconscious knows more than you know. It just doesn't know how to communicate it, I think.
Yeah, it's almost like I'm just trying to envision of analogies, but if like a tap or something, you know, like you can
tap.
Like you have to let some of it, like you don't have to, but you let some of it out and then you react to whatever is there, right?
Yeah.
So that's
yeah. Wow, that's beautiful.
But yeah, I don't know, just...
That's really cool. I really like the way you described that. I felt that you described that in a very fitting way. That's a really lovely metaphor.
Yeah.
You got to let it out. You let it out and then you react to what's there. Exactly.
Yeah. Open the tap.
But you close it again, right?
Yeah. Open the tap, close the tap, and then look at the water and be like, okay, cool.
Yeah, you look at the water. But I think especially, well, I took a self-defense class once, and it was less to do with the martial arts, even though I did actually get to whoop some butt at a subsequent occasion, but it's not important. They were just talking about situations where you feel like how to be safe in situations in general, so that you end up not putting yourself in the circumstance where you need to fight. And a lot of it, they said, listen to your gut, because especially, people, when you're younger, you listen to your gut so much more. You are so much in tune with your intuition because you don't really know anything else. And so a lot of the time, people don't really listen to kids, but a lot of the time maybe they have something more to say because they're tapping into something that you've decided to rationalize away.
Yeah, temper.
But I think people think that the adult thing to do is to rationalize it away and temper and just sort of ignore when they have a bad feeling about something or when they have a certain feeling about something, when perhaps the better thing to do is to actually focus on it more and understand why they feel like that. And if you're thinking, oh, the reason it felt like that is because I'm pretty sure that was a knife in his pocket, then that's some advice that's an intuition that you should go with. And if it's, oh, well, he said something bad about cats and I really like cats and so I don't like him for that reason, then maybe you should temper your intuition a little bit, because maybe you're just biased towards cats and he said something about cats and that's why you've decided that he's some murdering psychopath. That's a really weird example, but do you understand what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, I mean, taking like knives and cats to like ninths and flats, in music, it could sort of, apply it that way.
Wow.
He had a knife in his pocket and it just, I wasn't sure about, he said something bad about flats and all of a sudden,
Oh, Leo Kelly G, everyone. But but I actually think, I know I'm just talking, for some reason I'm talking about self-defense, but I'm saying I think it can apply to emotions within music as well.
Yeah.
Because I think if you start from the position of, I want this to be mysterious and scary, then you might miss out on some nuances that you might not actually have an existing lexical concept for. So I just like to make sure that, just make sure I'm not missing anything in the old back of the head. But then...
So do you think the intention is like, it clouds... I'd say it can hinder you. I don't want to say hinder in a way that like you shouldn't do it because you'll miss out things. Because sometimes if you go the intention route, then whatever you're trying to achieve might either come out faster or come out exactly how you wanted it to, and then
I think it's just, I like to allow for some happy accidents. I think
it's almost like if you're intending to achieve something, you'll achieve it because you're intending to achieve it, but in achieving it you'll miss something that might have potentially been better working intuitively instead. Like if you go out to be like, I'm going to write a song in like D flat minor, for example, like it's going to be in D flat minor and nothing's going to change mine, it's going to be like that, and you miss out of all the other keys that you could potentially do by just working intuitively. As a really crude example.
That could be an example. But that doesn't mean that, because, well, what I was going to say was I do have like that intuitive process at the start, but then what I really like to do, just because I think it's healthy, and also because I think it's enriching, is to go back over what I've done, and then I have to go, why have I done that? And I have to come up with I don't have to come up with, but I really should come up with some answers, because I really do. I like the knowledge, and I really like to understand why I've done what I've done, even though I don't like to pay too much attention to it initially. I like to go back and analyze it and go, okay, well, the reason I've done this is because I think, yes, it is scary, but also perhaps it is this other nuanced feeling. And then I go, oh, okay. And then maybe I have the decision whether I want to just go the scary route or whether I want to lean more into this nuanced feeling that I've not actually disclosed to you. And I can take it that direction. So now I just have more options.
Yeah.
And then what's really nice is sometimes you do something you say, I have this motif to represent this thing, and you don't know you've done it. But once you found out that you've done it, what you can do is you can take that and then you can add it to your little composer's toolbox. You can add it to your composer's... You can add it to your composer's toolbox. That next time you go, I want to achieve this effect, you can go, oh, I have a thing for that I did that last time.
Exactly.
And so you're just basically building on top of everything that you've heard before and everything that you've done before, which is really lovely. And so that's the way I like to do business.
Take good care, honey, don't lose your soul, for wild eyes do look upon. For each peaceful night there's a dog on patrol that echoes the wind. Don't despair, for the truth that you seek is anywhere and everywhere. There are miles of ocean that run just as deep, only to lead nowhere. Listen up, it makes no difference. The point in finding selfish reasons hiding complications. Why are you so different? Go wandering over again, see where it takes you. I got scars of ashes to tell my tale, tears and sweat drip to fill my pain, and I can't stand you. Let history repeat itself if you won't listen. I got scars for ages that prove me well. Time has stories that eyes can't tell, and I can't stand you. And history repeats itself when you don't listen. And at the bottom of the stairs I read myself of you. Sent you away from prying eyes. I sent you off into the world to rectify your point of view. But in the middle of the night I was calling you. I beat myself in times of fear for it's a punishment, but I'll survive as long as you do too. Don't turn around.
Yeah, definitely. I think that rings so many like bells in my head in terms of like it all makes so much. You know, when someone just drops like a load of truth, and you're just sort of like, you want to find a way to express like how much you agree with it all, but like all of it, like it makes so much sense in terms of like the things that you subconsciously do can have really like just they make very strange connections sometimes in your head, I think, and then like obviously if you can analyze them, it just gives you then kind of a shortcut to doing that again, and then potentially, you know, to even sort of go deeper in it. Like I always think of you brought this up, and I never even realised. I think it was when I played you "Coming Home," which is a song that I wrote, and the introductory riff in it goes like from sort of B flat to A to G to F, and it comes home like to the key again, and like but without even realising the song was called it ended up having this riff that came home kind of thing, and it's kind of like something subconsciously, there was something must have made, you know, like whether it was the fact that like it actually did that maybe write the lyric, or whether it was the other way around or whatever, but then having an awareness of that sort of thing then gives you okay, so you can write something like that to then come home in that way, and it's sort of like you can have harmony and the way that music moves inform the lyrics that you write as well as the other way around, which until you brought it up was never something I'd even thought of. But then again, it's just another thing in your toolbox and then be like, okay, I can now, you can mix the two together and it gives you another kind of way of just looking at things.
Well, it's like they say, if you don't know, now you know. Johnny,
Yes.
are you enjoying yourself?
I am, yeah.
Okay.
I'm just absorbing all
checking.
this. I'm just absorbing all this information.
Yeah. What do you want to talk about?
So
Do you want to talk how I wrote the film, maybe, or how what influenced me?
Well, that was the other thing that I was going to ask, because like every time I hear your music, it's very you, but like because obviously you're very well listened, as you both are. Where your music actually comes from, like I've never heard like the source point, if that makes sense. There's bits of it I hear every now and again. But in terms of the film score, when I heard it, it wasn't kind of like, she's trying to be, she's not even trying to imitate, or like, or it sounds like this. I didn't really have a reference point for it. So like, I'm curious as to how you were kind of like, what inspired how you came to the sort of the sound of it, the whole thing.
To make that point slightly more general and then gradually converge on what you're specifically asking, I think I have told you this before, but I really, how do I say this? I think when you ask an artist what their influences are, again, it's kind of to do with intuition, but when you ask the artist what their influences are, I think they like to list off a bunch of artists that they like and have inspired them on a level that they can recognize. But I've come to realize that everything can be an influence. So, and it doesn't even have to be ones that you're consciously aware of. So another thing that I really love to do, because I do this in my sort of pop music, I guess you could call it as well, is I like to look back over it and go, what specific artists or songs have inspired this, and why does it sound like that? So I did have one song that was inspired by Kesha, and it's like, all power to Kesha. I'm not particularly a fan of her music or anything, but somehow she managed to become a massive, like the major influence in my song. Yeah. So, and really random things. Even there was this girl and she just hummed something on the train, and I got like a whole orchestral track out of that. It was like a weird techno orchestral track that I've still yet to finish, but yeah. And it's just that some girl was humming something on the train, and I was like, yes, I can get a solid like 7 minutes out of that. So I mean,
it takes a certain amount of, like, you have to have the tools to be able to interpret those ideas that might come randomly, or that might come intuitively, one might say.
Well, I guess
because if someone hears like loads of people have heard Kesha, but not a lot of people will say like, I'm gonna make a song that is inspired by this in a completely original way. Like people listen to things for all different types of reasons. So it's so I guess having the tools to extrapolate a creative idea, I think is interesting.
Well, I'm sure some people, it depends who you are, but I think as well people like to, what do I want to say? Well, I think the innate, when you pick up the ability to write a song specifically, like the way that Leo does, it's not something that he sat down and opened How to Write a Song for Dummies. I think it has come out of you, but that is a manifestation of every single thing you've ever heard in your entire life since you were born, in my opinion. So yes, you do need to have that sort of, I guess you need to have that toolbox, but I think people do tend to naturally accumulate that, especially when if they are indeed creatively inclined. I don't want to speak for everyone, but I think it is something that you can do quite naturally, and then it sort of just oozes out of you in a certain way. But I quite enjoy it when you can hear something that maybe they weren't even thinking of, or that they wouldn't necessarily expect, but maybe. Well, for me, sometimes I've heard something, I've listened to something that, for 5 minutes, and then I've heard it again in a song that I really, really enjoy, and I go, oh, that's so crazy, because I wouldn't have thought that, you know? I wouldn't have pegged that as, if I had to, you know, go and say I'm going to write a song about this, I wouldn't have said that. But then I've ended up writing a song that kind of is influenced by that anyway.
Yeah, and how does that manifest in terms of like your workflow? In terms, I mean, I guess it differs between writing a soundtrack and writing like single tunes. But is that something? Do you have like? Because I feel like everyone has different processes. Some people might record a bunch of voice memos and be like, okay, I'm gonna use this one. Is that a process that you just sort of build like Lego bricks up, or do you like, how much was just I'm sitting at a keyboard, either a typing keyboard?
Yeah, literally none of it.
And creating, or is it like you have?
I
these
don't sit at
ideas,
keyboards.
You have a bank of thoughts, right?
I have it. Yeah, I think I just listen to. I feel like I'm listening to music all the time. And then sometimes that just happens to be my own music, and then sometimes I'm listening to music, but it's music I've never heard before, and then I think, ooh, well, I should actually probably, you know, type that into existence. So I think a lot of it is in its entirely produced form before it.
In your head, though.
Yeah, in my head before it.
So you have like
before I like vomit it up. You know, I think a lot of it, vomit, that's a good word. I am basically just diving into the abyss of my subconscious and then just vomiting something up from the chasm and just praying that it might be worth something.
Okay, so that's quite interesting, because I feel like it is a bit different to the way I would like create things.
I'd say, well, let me temper what I
right
said.
Or wrong, yeah, but
let me temper what I said, because I mean, there's always a bit of, you know, I have the bulk of the idea, but then there's always a bit of me building and going into it a bit more with a bit more like forethought. I think, yeah. It's not always, but a lot of the time, I'd say most of the time, it just starts as a bleh, and then I just add little bits.
Okay.
As it materializes more. Sometimes I think, yeah, this sounds good, but needs more triangle. And then Bob's your uncle. Got some. Just open up Apple Loops. Find yourself some triangle. And Chago, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's interesting. It's almost as if, I guess, you have like more RAM, you know, in your head to remember ideas that you might think of randomly, again, intuitively one day in the shower while listening to music or whatever, and be able to stack them up, know what works, and then put it into a piece of work, you know? Whereas for me, I'll think out one idea that's like on one instrument or something, and then I'll put it into a tangible form on either a voice note or you write it down or whatever, and then you combine the pieces and then you create a thing. So yeah,
that has tripped me up at some occasions. Mostly when a lot of the songs that I wrote, a lot of the songs that I came up with, I had an idea for when I was like 11. I just don't. I kind of can't remember them anymore. So that's not good. But at the same time, I remember that they weren't that good anyway. So I don't miss them. Okay. And the ones I really do like, songs I've written when I was 11 that I absolutely love, I still do remember to this day. I just haven't
I know what you mean.
spoken them into existence or done anything with them.
Right. Okay.
But I mean, specifically, if you want to, because I did go back and I was thinking of, in terms of the film, what could have been an influences. I did receive, because I'm not the executive producer of this film is, of course, the man, the myth, the woman, the myth, the legend, Tisha Graves, my mom. But and she did kind of give me a brief. Because I feel like as well, I wasn't actually, from the outset, I wasn't going to be the producer. I think we were just going to make a film that I could soundtrack. And then I ended up writing the script, but then I ended up doing a little bit more. So then I just sort of became the producer just as it became required, because it's our first project, and so I guess everyone kind of needed all the help they can get. So it was very all hands on deck. But going into it, I didn't really have any say on what the story would be. So I wrote the screenplay, but I didn't necessarily come up with what the story was. That was very much collaborative. But the idea that it was going to be a costume drama about a cult, that was pretty much my mum. I remember having that conversation.
Sure.
I remember you telling us about that conversation as well.
Yeah, and then being like, but why a cult and why a costume drama? And it was basically like, listen, Bethany, I have a vision. I'm going to see it through. I'm just kidding. She's actually she's a very logical person, and and I'm sort of very much playing up that conversation for the memes. But so she did give me a brief though. She said that she wanted it to be very Last of the Mohicans. And what's very interesting is when you're writing to a brief, say when you have a client and they say they want something, I don't think that you should always, this sounds bad, but like take them at face value. But I mean that in a good way, because sometimes they'll say, I want Last of the Mohicans, but then you have to go and delve into why they say they want Last of the Mohicans. So, because there's so much to what makes the OST for Last of the Mohicans, the Last of the Mohicans music. There are so many parameters and there's so many things that go into it. So you need to think, okay, well, what is actually in that music that is relevant to our film specifically, and what in that film, or what is it, what emotion or what sense in that film is it that you specifically want to apply to the Book of Laws? That's the name of the film, by the way, Book of Laws. So
roll credits.
Just thought I should clarify.
So anytime anyone says Book of Laws in any context in the world, the credits will roll.
The credits will roll.
You guys crack me up. So yeah, anyway, what was I saying? The credits rolled, and then I thought, well, film's over, interview's over.
The idea for the film.
Oh yeah. So I did have Last of the Mohicans, and I was trying to work out, why Last of the Mohicans specifically, going all Vsauce Michael here. And I think it was just the idea that my mum feels that it's quite present in certain situations within the film. In certain situations within the film, there might not be as much happening on screen, or there might not be so much action on screen, but the music is far forward enough that it's essentially influencing the story on a much stronger scale than just being ambience or just mood or and that was one of the things that was part of it. And also I just thought the sense of what's the word for heavy, but heavy in terms of importance and grave.
As in I know what you mean.
Having a sense of gravity and importance to it, I think.
Pregnancy,
sorry?
yeah.
Poignancy.
Poignancy, maybe. Poignancy, but also being quite large. The main theme is pretty larger than life.
Right, okay.
It's very, it's very bois in terms of orchestration. You know what I mean when I say that. And then...
As fellow creatives, you know what I mean when I say
yeah. When I say bois, you know what I'm talking about.
It's the secret code. Don't tell anyone about the bois.
Sometimes you just got to be like...
Yeah.
Well,
that's what it feels like.
It's like base level music communication before words come in to work it out. Just give me some and it's okay, I can do that.
My favorite thing is being able to my favorite thing with that specifically is communicating like that is great, but also the fact that with you two specifically, we found a way to communicate that over text as well.
Yeah.
So I'll be like, can you just be like, but I'll just type it in as something and you guys will just get it.
Yeah, it's like NSK, NSK, NSK. Ah, yeah, okay.
Yeah. I think sometimes I feel like that's maybe why I don't know how to write lyrics or write any like literary ideas. It's because in my head it's just going like
you're too you're too deep in the bois.
Yeah.
I was already satisfied by that element. Yeah, there's no need.
Yeah. So I don't need words.
I have that too. Well, not necessarily, but with the lyrics specifically, sometimes I'm so happy with the gibberish that I've come up with, the the primordial gibberish that that I'm like, do I need lyric? Can I not just make up a language and just use these exact syllables? So, but back to the film. Yeah. The other thing that I really, I kind of was like, yeah, I think this is there's something about the 6-5-1-5 chord sequence, and it's everywhere in music that I think seems a little bit heavy, or seems a little bit like maybe even patriotic, patriotic, or I don't know. You know, like 2001 Space Odyssey. The last, like the cadence at the end of it when it just goes blah, 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 that's a 6-5-1, isn't it?
Yeah.
But it's like it's like the happier, or it's the sort of more majestic aspect of it. And then if you I feel like if you have a phrase like a 6-5-1-5 phrase, or a 6-5-1 or whatever, if you end it on the 6, then it gets a little bit, has slightly more of a, like less of a quality and more of a quality.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah. It's kind of like, because it gives you like the positivity of the 1 being like, and it's like, oh no, it's a 6.
Yeah.
It just drags you like back down again, but it like,
yeah.
But it drags the majesticity of the 1 down with it. So you're sort of like, and you carry that with you to the and it's like you feel it more.
Yeah. So with the Last of the Mohicans specifically, what's it? It kind of goes like 6-5-1-5 6, and so it's very. First of all, that another thing that makes it quite rounded and very complete sounding is just the fact that it's quite symmetrical in its chord structure, in its sequence. So like da 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 da, it's palindromic, isn't it?
Yeah.
And that gives us a good sense of sort of completeness because it ends in the sort of mirror image way that it begins.
Sure.
But it's sort of that da 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 da, which is the 6. Da 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 is the 5. And then it goes da da 1. You're like, that feels rousing, you know, and it kind of seems kind of hopeful. And it goes back to the 5. Da 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 da. And it goes back to the 5 and it goes da da da, and it ends on that minor.
Yeah.
Sure.
Da da da. And so it seems very complete and it seems very final, but it also seems like it hasn't ended on that rousing, lifting note. It's come back. It's like I've got a bit of hope, and then I've been brought back down to earth. And that's a very common arc within music, specifically with the 6-5-1s and the 6-5-1-5 6s and stuff. And it's a lot. It's not everywhere in music, but you know you can find it if you look.
Pirates of the Caribbean. Sorry, just in the look at it.
Oh goodness!
Sorry, this is completely. But like sorry, just like it just you got me thinking about 6-5-1.
It's just the way you sounded like you were having like some sort of like
actual idea, yeah.
No, it's just the way you put your hand over your mouth earlier, like what you said was just sort of like, I don't know, that you just blurted it out and you were like, oh, sorry. Yeah. I'm sorry I mentioned Pirates of the Caribbean. I was trying to work out like what's so wrong with Pirates of the Caribbean. Like, is it because of, I don't know, is it like a Johnny Depp controversy?
No. It's literally just like
Pirates of the Caribbean.
The theme tune. Just like I just because you mentioned that it happens a lot, and then like it just clicked in my head that happened to be a 6-5-1-5 as well. That was all.
Sorry.
It's just Leo's intuitive thought. You know, we gotta.
Yeah, I built a neural bridge in my head, and my initial reaction was to go, there's a bridge now there.
Skeptical.
Sorry.
Isn't it like a 6156?
Yes, it is. Sorry, and this, yeah. Sorry, yeah, it's not.
But
it's my myself. Sorry,
well done. You tried.
You tried, Leah. Nice job.
No. Like,
sorry, say the way
but
around.
but you're right. But you're right though. Actually, I mean, the da 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 is one way, but just having those. I mean, having those chords. The chords are there, man, and I think that it's just like another shade. It's just another variation.
Yeah.
So which does
it's not
apply.
It's not exactly that.
It's not exactly that, but
like
it counts. It counts, man. Well done.
But then also half a mark in a test, like almost there, but you missed the dunk.
And at the same time, you can't like discount Leo's interpretation of that chord sequence. Like
exactly, it's just
people
as
feel
valid.
Chord sequences different ways.
You're unique.
No, I know.
Like everyone else.
But at the same time, like it's
so
okay. It wasn't a 6515. It's like it was a 61.
No. I think. Listen, I think we're all on the same page. I think we all agree that your input was valuable, regardless of the fact that it wasn't exactly what we were talking about. But it's fine. We can put that to rest. But yeah, with the Book of Laws, I have, we have the cold open, and that's one thing. But then we also have the opening credits, and that goes a certain type of way because I decided that one of the, I kind of wanted to have that rousing arc, and I also wanted to have that thing where there's hope and it brings it down to earth, because at the end of the day, the end of the film is a hopeful ending, but it isn't necessarily like a super happy, clappy, or everything ends well ending. So it's a bit, it's more of a hopeful ending than it is, it doesn't end on, the witch is dead, or it's not a sort of, what's the name of that, Dorothy? What's the Wizard of Oz? It's not like, it's not the thing where, she comes back home and everything's great. And she tells her aunt what an adventure she had. So I decided to do that. So I had it is different. And also I wanted to keep it quite simple as well. I wanted to have not too many notes in general. This is the other thing of not wanting to get in the way of the actual message of the film and what you want to convey too much in the interests of being spectacular or being flashy or something, because at the end of the day you're soundtracking a film. You're not trying to show off. So
trying to show your
so I did want to keep it quite simple, because that's kind of in keeping with the film. The community are people who've shunned all excess, essentially. And they're just living on their lonesome, leading their lives, and kidding themselves that they're happy. So it's a bit of a grind, and it's, it ain't much, but it's honest work, is basically what the soundtrack is saying in a nutshell. So I have the same thing with the 6, 5, 1, 5. And then I have a little bit, where it's just a little bit like 6, 5, 4. And that's kind of, that bit's a little bit sad. It's like a, And then 1, 5, 6. Yeah. Does that? Yeah. I don't know if it was even worth me doing that, but
no. I mean, having seen the film, absolutely. like having seen the film now, and like seeing it, like it is an intention, to weave that theme throughout the film and have it come at different points.
Yeah. Also, and I did like, so it does have a sense of finality to it, I feel, and it's cool because when you play it backwards, you can hear the theme forwards.
Sure.
Oh, okay.
So I guess it's like, you've done something. So that's kind of what I wanted to do. But
that's cool. That's really,
that is really cool.
I mean, can you call it palindromic songwriting?
It's, well,
I mean,
And people do that, right? I'm sure there's some GCSE class, music class happening
right now
in the near future. Yeah. Well, it's 10 o'clock, so
somewhere in the world. Yeah. Maybe not GCSE.
I was also thinking of, speaking of Jacob Collier, he does that sort of TikTok reel thing where he plots out the MIDI for to try and spell out a word, and he spells out vote.
He spells out what?
He spells out the word vote, and he was trying to encourage American people to go out and vote for the presidential election. But he was sort of doing like a
yeah.
And that gets the V, and then to get the O, it's like and he gets the O. Anyway.
Yeah. No. Yeah. I love them because there's quite a few videos where they love to just here's what red sounds like in MIDI, you know.
Yeah.
But it's nice that he applied himself in that way.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean, it is something. I mean, I guess it's one of those things, like as you were saying earlier, just trying to sort of center the tributary back to the main river. But it's like, but you know how you like pick things up on the way, and you just find these new tools, you know, like okay, I'm gonna try to write a song now that, or like a tune or a theme, or if you're composing a soundtrack for a film, it's like intuitive or process songwriting, whatever. It's like you have this new tool, I guess, to try and access a new emotion, and then maybe spelling out a V makes me feel a certain way. And also now, if I hear anything of that nature that goes,
you're gonna think you're gonna want to go and vote.
That's like a V to me now.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so
I thought you were gonna say like, why does this musical motif make me want to go to the polls immediately?
What can I vote on right now?
So just saying on Twitter, just like
on Twitter and say yes to some random vote.
Patriotic and democratically inclined all of a sudden. It's like, I need to go and like do something to help my country. Like, the T must have been difficult, right? To spell out a MIDI, because it must be like boom, to get like the
he literally
and the
E just like bum dum like to get everything down.
Well, he just
smashing your face down in the middle of the keys
just to get the middle one. It's like
I think he did a
massive
chord.
You gotta suffer for your art.
I think he did a massive chord, and then he stuck it out with some octaves.
Yeah,
so, like that. Yeah. Anyway.
Goodness. What's
anyway, so
a musical martyr, Jacob Collier.
Musical martyr, Jacob Collier,
smashing his face in for the greater good. Anyway,
I mean, so what's your plan for I mean, if there is one, but like obviously you're submitting it to film festivals and things like that.
Yeah, you're trying to wrap this up, aren't you? I still have stuff to say. No, I'm just kidding.
I mean, we could go on for this forever.
No. We'll
have to finish at some point.
Yeah. I have. Well, we're submitting it to a bunch of festivals right now. So currently, it is being considered by Sundance, by Tribeca Film Festival, and by Athens, Ohio Video and Film Festival. I've always wanted to. I want to go to Ohio.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if it wasn't a lockdown, you guys would have been submitting it to physical places rather than. I'm guessing it's all virtual now, right? Or unless it.
Well, I don't actually know what's going to happen. I'm very much. I guess I'm just rolling with whatever the festivals decide to do.
Sure.
But yeah, and it's I'm just basically, I've got the Instagram account, Book of Laws Film, books _of_laws_film. Got I assume you'll link this and stuff. There's the Book of Laws. There's the bookoflaws.com. There's we've got a Facebook page. Same book _of_laws_film.
There's a YouTube channel as well, right?
Yes, we have TBZ Productions.
Yeah.
Book of and there you can actually you'll be able to find the trailer, which also has some cool music. Actually, taken some various bits of the soundtrack to just make a little soundtrack for the trailer, but you'll hear the oppression theme. I've decided that there are a bunch of like themes that I've decided are important, or slightly more, because there's a lot of different things in the film. There's it's a sort of a gender stereotype sort of look in. There's spiritual deception. There's the conditional love of being in a cult, but then there's also all sorts of things. And there's also a theme of greed, which actually the theme of greed is quite far back in the film, but once it by the very, very final scene, it's more prominent, the whole idea of greed, and because they're giving tithes to this woman, right? But that's actually, I feel like I should mention this because that scene, the music that is playing in that scene is a little bit of a love letter to Ennio Morricone. And I just want to say big up to him because, he sadly passed away not too long ago, and I miss him. And I didn't even, and that happened, I finished the film, and then not too long after that, I got the news. And so I think he massively influenced that scene in particular, because while it's not exactly the same, it is, there is that bit in The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly where, the ugly guy, I can't remember the name of the guy who was the ugly in the film, but he's looking for some treasure, and eventually he's in a graveyard, and he finds out what the name of the grave that the treasure's under, and then there's this whole scene where the Ecstasy of Gold plays, which is just the wah 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 wah, right?
Sure. Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
And nothing happens that whole scene. It's literally just that guy running, and then the camera just whizzing, it's just zooming past all of these, doing these graves. And it's basically, it just does that for however long it takes for the Ecstasy of Gold to finish. And I kind of, because he's there and he's looking for this treasure and stuff, and there's kind of a similar theme in the very, very final scene of the Book of Laws, which I think is one of my favorite scenes of the whole film, just because it's but yeah, it has that. I've got mezzo soprano Emily Noon. She sings over it, and so she sings she sings my little oppression motif. But because I kind of wanted to take that idea of Ennio Morricone's that scene basically just being a point where you can just sit back and listen to the music. And it was kind of a similar vibe with this one. So I took the oppression theme and I turned it more into a song that kind of just starts and ends. And then also I had her sing it in much the same way as there's a solo singer in The Ecstasy of Gold, and so and kind of some of the chords. It's just a little bit. It's not quite. You can't. If you're listening, I think hard enough, you can see a little bit of a parallel or a bit of a just like it's a tribute really. I just wanted to put like a little tribute that maybe if you know, and it's.
Sure.
And then
little Easter eggs.
little Easter egg, and managing to like have that tribute, and so also like combining the idea of greed with oppression and the fact that like being oppressed by greed, among other things. Sure. It's another thing. It's a very, very complex cocktail of emotions that you can only really get across through the music as opposed to by me explaining it to you.
Yeah.
Cool.
But there are all sorts of bits like that. And yeah.
I think what would be really cool to have with the film, obviously you have like a website, you have like channel and things like that, but it almost like program notes at a classical concert, it would be, and not just in form on this podcast right now, but like it would be great to have those in a digestible format for an audience,
Yeah.
and
in
the audience
just like,
of...
Go on, sorry, Karen.
No, as in just like an audience, like not just people that know how to write music for that purpose or whatever, or write stories for that purpose or whatever, but yeah, digestible by novices as well, you know. That would
even just like a you know, like having the score and then having you like explain the score either as it's happening, like just have like kind of the way that Jacob Collier does with a lot of his work. He has like him and then the screen next to it, and sort of like you stopping and saying, oh, well, here I was trying to do this, and then like here I was going for this kind of thing. Like, it'd be really, really interesting to see sort of like throughout, because there's so much music in it, like to be able to delve into that would be absolutely amazing to kind of like, I think for anyone, like not only just for, you know, for us as musicians and also who've played in it, but like to be able to kind of like just to get an insight into all of the different intentions for all the different parts of the film would be amazing.
Yeah, and I guess both the musical and the literary themes as well.
Yeah,
I guess, which is what that was.
I'm
like the Greek,
glad
like the ideas of Greek. Yeah,
I'm glad that you mentioned that, actually, because a lot of we've got two videos, because we've just started the YouTube channel, and so we have two videos. One of them is the trailer, one of them is getting to meet the cast, but we will actually we're still creating content for that channel, still behind the scenes content, and I actually will be interviewing some of the musicians as well, and there is going to be more just sort of I guess show notes, like a little bit, just going into the different themes and how, and I will go into there will be the soundtrack as well. We'll talk about the soundtrack. We'll talk about all the dead people that are in the soundtrack. I mean, there are dead people in the soundtrack. Right. Specifically, the founder of the cult, who's now dead, but his influence lives on, because he is now a chord. He is literally a chord. And there's a film by, I don't want to say, it's not Clark Gable, the guy in To Kill a Mockingbird. The guy in Atticus Finch in To Kill a Mockingbird, the old film. But I don't know. I think he plays I can't remember the name of the film, but he plays, I'll figure it out. He plays I think that he's trying to get this woman and her child away from this Native American chief who's hunting them down. I'm not too familiar with the film, but I did sort of go into the soundtrack a bit, and you don't see this Native American, you don't see this, because he's the antagonist, right? You don't see him until pretty near the end of the film, but you can hear him, because whenever there's a gust of wind, there'll be like, you know, there'll be Foley for the gust of wind, it'll go, but then a little bit within that you can hear his chord, which is super cool. And so, wow. And I didn't do exactly that, but I did definitely take inspiration from that. Whenever there's also there's the dead cult leader, then there's the new cult leader's dead wife, and they're kind of the two opposing forces. They're the dead people who are sort of fighting each other. There's the prophet, and then there's this guy's dead wife, and they have opposing views, and they were fighting in life, and now they're fighting in death through their influence. And so she's not a chord, but she is actually an actual human woman voice who says things, but you're not really supposed to hear what she says, but she actually says words. And if you listen really carefully, you can kind of hear the words, but she always kind of appears when you need to, when she feels the need to warn someone. So whenever it's like a sort of don't do it, you'll kind of hear a bit of a
Yeah. I mean that's really cool. I mean as a media consumer, someone who watches films or TV shows or visual mediums, after I watch something, I might not necessarily pick up on everything on that first viewing and things, or I want to challenge what my interpretation of the film was, according to the original intention of the film or how the audience is reacting to it. And at that point, I want to go online and like, I guess these are for like bigger budget, like more mainstream things, but I want to go online and check out all these reviews, check out all these interpretations, check out all these sort of just people reacting to it, or the creators talking about exactly what they were going for, or the actors being interviewed on a very silly program, but then you find out something really cool about the film in the process.
I think.
Yeah.
Well, in conclusion, it is the kind of film that I think, because we all, well, a couple of us, when we had this little like test viewing of the film, I think before we like properly had finalized it, we watched it all together, but there was also a very much like a sense of excitement because you guys had all been in the film. So it was but I do think that it is one of those films that warrants, if not a second viewing, or it warrants a little bit of attention, because not all of it is laid out in front of you.
Sure.
It's kind of the majority of, I mean, it is kind of an Easter egg of a film, and it's I think it's worth just sort of just seeing what you can see, because it's very kaleidoscopic as well, just in that we've got so many different societal themes that we want to touch upon, because we wanted to make it as much of an exaggerated form of what an actual, like the exaggerated dystopian version of what a lot of actual societies are like. And so we didn't want it to be just like bad in this specific direction. So there's even like the rage of being in a younger generation forced into circumstances because of an older generation, that exists in the film, and that's also something that's in society as well. Like there are a bunch of people in the younger generation who are angry about climate change, and a lot of them are taking their rage out on the older generation, or even just being stuck within tradition because it's what their ancestors have been doing till now, and they feel pressured to be doing the same thing and that kind of thing. There are a bunch of different themes, and I think depending on even there's Stockholm syndrome, like depending on, I think, and we all have different backgrounds. We were coming to watch the film from different walks of life, and so we have what we've directly experienced and what's been a heavy shadow in our own lives is different to what the next person is. So I think there are certain phrases even that where if you've been familiar with that kind of situation, or if you've been that will speak to you maybe more than it will speak to the next person, because you're like, yes, that's what X sounds like, because I kind of have experience with that, or we've taken it. It didn't start off as a particularly. It didn't start off as the big project that it is now. I think we wanted to make like a very, very short film that's just a little bit moody that we could make in our living room. And then slowly, as we wrote the script, we decided, as soon as we found out that we had things we wanted to say, it turned a lot more serious quite quickly. And then because it turned a lot more serious quite quickly, it became, in order to honor the themes, it became less appropriate to do it by halves. So we wanted to do, we really wanted to do the message a really good job, do them a good job. And then, we'd get actors, professional actors, instead of whoever we were going to have.
Sure, yeah.
And then now we need to do them proud, because this is a lot of them as well haven't necessarily been in a project like this before, and it's kind of something we want them to be able to show it and be proud of it. So then it just became so much more responsibility, like in a good way. Like it was the responsibility is palpable now. Like we understand now that like we just ended up taking it so much more seriously now, because we realized that the potential to impact a lot of people's lives is there a lot, especially when you're running such a big project. And so you really want to just completely like beat the opportunity into the ground, I guess, and do your absolute most to make sure that the best, it gets the best possible result, and it makes a really positive impact on the world in in whatever little way that you can. Because we all have our very small spheres of influence, and we just try and make sure that sphere of influence is always as positive as possible, as much as possible. So that's kind of the main idea behind the film, and just even why we, it's not necessarily why we started, but by the end of it, that's definitely what we're trying to achieve.
Sure, yeah. I mean, I guess having a film that has the ability to be a repeat filming film, repeat viewing film. So if you watch it again the second time, there's going to be new things that you pick up on. Because whatever happens, the audience experiences it the first time maybe a certain way that person does. But I went to watch Tenet again, which is another palindrome.
Yes.
But I watched it the second time, and I appreciated it so much more because I was able to pick up on more themes. I had gone away and read about it. I was able to pick out exactly what the filmmaker was. So whatever I felt in my first viewing was whatever I felt in my first viewing. I was like, oh, I'm confused. I didn't know what was happening. I guess this happened. But then on second viewing, I was like, okay, I see what he was doing there. I was seeing what he was doing there. I see why I felt the way I did the first time. And then recontextualize it. So so having a film that has the ability to do that, not all films, like most films are just surface level things happen.
Yeah.
I don't think most films are like that.
Well, yeah, I mean,
Into the Spider-Verse wasn't like that.
Yeah.
Man, Into the Spider-Verse was so powerful.
Depends what
that was
you watch.
amazing.
Get up, Spider-Man. Get up, Spider. Sorry. Anyway.
but even musically, it's similar though, in that I think having listened to the soundtrack accompanying the film, and then now having heard you unpack it even just a little bit, it gives me it gives you so much more to listen to. So not only does the film have more sort of on a second or third or fourth viewing, but the soundtrack itself, on its own merit, by itself you can unpack the themes sort of while they're there, but then also how the themes then interact with what's going on in the film as well. So you almost have 3 different ways you can come at the film, from purely visual, from purely sonic, and then having the whole visual and sonic together as well, and have the whole thing
it's very open to interpretation.
You put the Sonic Bytes together, and you
and the credits roll. For real this time. But yeah, you can. It's very much open to interpretation. The other thing is we're presenting something. We're presenting a view of societies around the world of on a platter, but we're not necessarily. It's not like a judgment call. It doesn't really come to any sort of resolution in terms of. It's not necessarily supposed to make you come away with any ideas, as it is for you to come away with some own questions that you ask yourself, and then you sort of. It's more of a we want to make a bit of conversation bubble up, as opposed to tell anyone that or to convince anyone of anything. We're not trying to convince anyone of anything, really. We're just trying to make people think a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, I'm excited to see how it plays out, in terms of how it's received, and what people do say in the end, about that.
Yeah, well, thank you. Thank you. I hope it's nice things. But
it could be not nice things in terms of they came away with a dystopian view of society, and maybe, but maybe at least if they say oh man, I've lost all faith in humanity. Great film though. Then that's exactly. That's fine. No, I'm kidding. I want it to. I mean, I hope that it just gives them. I hope it's just food for thought in a an hour-long package. Yeah. But it is what it is. At the end of the day, we've already achieved what we set out to do in the beginning, just by the fact that we've made it. Yeah. And we've had I've gained so many skills. I didn't know how to mix necessarily very well, but it took a heck of a lot of effort to get your live strings sounding any type of way. And not that they were lovely played, but working with raw audio and getting to getting to something that sounds polished, and getting something that sounds really like a final product and stuff like that. I've learned so many skills. I know now how to. I've got experience on how to manage a team. I've never managed anything over. I think. Well, I mean, I've directed Rhapsody numbers, but
Rhapsody numbers kind of direct themselves. Sorry, that's a show we did together at uni. But those a lot of those things very much direct themselves sometimes when you have a group of very competent musicians together. But this was so many different things. It was, we had a string section, we had horns, but then that was just the music. Then we had cast and crew, then we had extras, then we had child actors, and then I had to find a child out of nowhere because something went wrong. And so there's a child in the film, but the child is kind of played by two different children because of an issue that was kind of out of our control.
Yeah.
But so these things happen. And now I know that these things happen, and I have an appreciation for people who need to run a big project with a lot of people, and now I have experience as well. I feel like I've grown as a person and as a project manager, and also I can cook for loads of people now as well. I did so much cooking on location. I even with a caterer, it wasn't enough. You need to cook. So just perfecting my groundnut stews.
Yeah, transferable skills.
Well, congratulations on completing the whole film, and I can't wait for it to. I'll be having seen it already. I can't wait to be able to see how it's reviewed and how it does, and I wish it. Well, but obviously you and your mum who put the whole thing together, and everyone who worked on it, I wish them all the best, and I hope it gets. All the credit it deserves, because I think it's absolutely fantastic, and I really enjoyed.
I feel like we haven't said it enough. It's fantastic.
Working
it's awesome
on it,
to listen.
B, watching it, listening to it, and just being a part of the whole process has been so much fun, just for me personally. And so I hope it does really, really well.
I'm glad you think the film is good. But yeah, no, thank you, and best of luck to the pod. I mean, I'm quite involved with you guys musically anyway. I have quite a personal stake in your artistic development, respectively, and also just your project and your general success. So, and maybe if I'm ever doing, because I have done this soundtrack, and I wish to continue in the vein of doing soundtracks after this is all over. But, I also do other things, and maybe one day you'll let me on the podcast again when I've got some other project to talk about, or we could just
we can just riff about random things,
Yeah, if you just want to, everyone want to talk about, separation of art from artist. I'm just kidding. I don't want to talk about separating the art from the artist.
Thank you so much for tuning in to Sonic Bytes. If you liked what you heard, drop us a like or follow us on Spotify, Anchor FM, or wherever you get your podcasts, or drop us a comment on YouTube at Leo Kelly G Music, Instagram at Sonic Bytes, or Twitter at Sonic Bytes Pod. More episodes coming very soon. Stay tuned.